My name is Nora Vale, and on my birthday, my father handed me a sealed white envelope in front of 50 relatives and a waiter still holding my cake. Everyone thought it was a check, maybe a house deed, maybe an overdue apology. It wasn't. Inside were 3 typed pages titled Formal Withdrawal of Family Association and Support. The words didn't land immediately. For a second, I thought it was a joke, some twisted way of saying, grow up. Then I heard the laughter. My cousin filming on her phone, my mother forcing a smile, my father raising his glass saying, "Consider this your independence, Nora." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just looked at him, the man who had always mistaken cruelty for discipline, and said quietly, "Thank you." The restaurant fell silent after that. Forks froze mid-air. Somewhere behind me, someone whispered, "Is she serious?" I wasn't sure myself. Later that night, I walked home with that envelope pressed flat in my coat pocket. The wind off the Charles River was sharp, cutting through the noise of traffic. My phone buzzed another family group chat notification, probably a meme or a replay of my humiliation. I didn't look. Instead, I opened my laptop. On the screen glowed the report I had spent weeks perfecting, a full revenue turnaround proposal for the downtown hotel I managed. The numbers were good. Better than good. I hit send to my general manager, attached the file, and wrote only 2 words for review. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning it rang again. Unknown number. When I answered, a calm voice said, "This is Elias Park, CEO of Aegis Hospitality. Is this Nora Vale?" And just like that, everything began to shift. The morning after my birthday, I found the envelope still on my kitchen counter, coffee stains on its corner. I hadn't thrown it away. Not yet. The paper looked harmless in daylight, but the words still carried the weight of every silence my family had ever weaponized. I sat there, rereading it, the formal tone, the legal formatting, the closing line signed by my father. Effective immediately, Nora Vale is no longer entitled to any financial, emotional, or familial claim within the Vale household. I wanted to laugh. Emotional claim. They hadn't offered that in years. At noon, my mother called. Her voice came wrapped in that tight, brittle sweetness she always used when pretending things were fine. "Your father didn't mean it that way, honey. It's just, he worries about how you've settled for less." Less, I asked. Less than what, Mom? Less than Caleb's failed startup? Less than his 3rd loan from Dad? Her silence said everything. Before she could reply, my phone buzzed again, an email from Marisol Chen, my general manager. The subject line, Performance Review Notes. I hesitated, expecting the usual polite phrases. Instead, I saw one sentence that made me sit up straighter. "I've forwarded your revenue optimization report to corporate. Outstanding work, Nora." I stared at the screen. For a moment, I forgot the envelope, the humiliation, the laughter. It all blurred into background noise. By evening, the text messages from my relatives had started fake concern, backhanded sympathy. "Hang in there, you'll bounce back." They were cheering for a version of me that stayed small. I closed my phone and went for a walk. The city was gray and damp, the streets still slick from last night's rain. I passed a cafe window and caught my reflection, hair tied back, face pale but steady. For the first time, I didn't see disappointment. I saw someone quietly preparing for something none of them expected. When I returned home, my inbox had one new email. Subject: follow-up on your proposal, E-Park. I opened it slowly, my heart pounding. Maybe my father had given me a gift after all, just not the one he intended. The next morning, my alarm never had the chance to ring. My phone buzzed again, same unknown number, same crisp tone on the other end. "This is Elias Park," the man said. "I reviewed your proposal. Are you available to come into corporate this afternoon?" My mouth went dry. Of course I managed, trying to sound calm. By noon, I stood in front of the glass headquarters of Aegis Hospitality, my palms sweating inside my blazer pockets. The lobby was marble and light, everything precise, professional, intimidating. When the receptionist handed me a visitor badge, I caught my reflection in its sheen. I looked composed. Almost. Elias Park's office was minimalist. No clutter, no wasted space. The skyline stretching endlessly behind him. He gestured for me to sit, eyes sharp but not unkind. "I don't usually call department managers directly," he said, "but your report caught my attention. It was meticulous. You increased revenue without raising rates." How? I took a breath. By restructuring shift allocation and cross-training staff. Less overtime, more consistency. Guests noticed stability. He leaned back, studying me. "And what made you send this without being asked?" I hesitated. The truth slipped out before I could stop it. Because I got tired of being invisible. For a moment, he did not respond. Then almost imperceptibly, he smiled. Good answer. He asked for projections, timelines, risk assessments. Every question was a test, and every answer felt like a climb out of the shadow I'd lived in for years. When it was over, he stood and offered his hand. 30 days. Take one of our struggling branches, South Station property, fix it. No promises beyond that, but if your results hold, we'll talk. I shook his hand. His grip was steady, deliberate, the kind that meant he expected results, not excuses. As I rode the elevator down, my reflection stared back from the mirrored walls. Somewhere between floors, I realized this wasn't just about proving myself at work. It was about reclaiming every part of me my family had laughed at. 30 days, that was all I needed, and this time I wasn't waiting for anyone's permission. The South Station branch looked worse than I expected. The carpets were faded, the staff exhausted, the air thick with the smell of old coffee and indifference. When I arrived that first morning, a desk clerk glanced up, unimpressed. "Corporate again," he muttered. "Not this time," I said. "I'm here to stay for a month." I started with observation. The night audit ran an hour late every day. Housekeeping's communication board was outdated. Guest satisfaction reports sat unopened in a drawer. Every problem screamed the same word: neglect. By week 1, I'd rewritten the daily operations checklist, merged shift rotations, and started brief 5-minute stand-ups at every changeover. I didn't bark orders, I listened. People responded to that. Slowly, the staff began to look at me less like an outsider and more like someone trying to help. At night, I stayed in one of the empty guest rooms, laptop open, numbers glowing across the dark. Revenue targets, occupancy trends, ADR forecasts. I tracked it all. Coffee replaced sleep. Determination replaced doubt. In the second week, Marisol called from headquarters. I saw the new RevPAR data, she said, excitement edging her usually calm tone. "You're up 8% already." Elias noticed. 8%. It wasn't victory yet, but it was a start. Meanwhile, my family's silence continued. Not a text. Not a call. The video of my birthday gift had quietly disappeared from the family chat. That somehow felt louder than any apology could have. By the third week, something shifted. Guests left glowing reviews. The staff began to laugh during shifts. One night, the night clerk, the same one who dismissed me on day 1, handed me a cup of coffee and said, "Feels different around here." "Good different?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, feels like someone finally gives a damn." When the final report was done, I sent it to corporate. Target met. Team morale restored. I hit send and exhaled. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. By the time I got back to Boston, the snow had turned the streets into a mirror of white. My inbox was already full: corporate updates, performance metrics, follow-up surveys from the South Station branch. I expected numbers. What I didn't expect was a message from my father. It wasn't an apology. It never was. The subject line read, "A chance to fix things." Inside, a PDF attachment. A new document, part apology, part manipulation. It said that if I signed a family agreement, I could regain partial access to the Vail Trust Fund. A financial leash disguised as forgiveness. I stared at it for a full minute, then hit delete. A second later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was HR at Aegis Hospitality. "Nora, Mr. Park would like you to attend the corporate town hall tomorrow evening," the message read. "He said you should bring your presentation file." I froze. The presentation file? The one I'd used at South Station. I hadn't even known he'd read it. The next night, the ballroom at the Hyatt gleamed under gold chandeliers. Rows of executives, managers, and staff filled the seats. Cameras streamed the event across the company intranet. Halfway through, Elias Park stepped onto the stage, his voice calm and steady. "Tonight," he said, "we recognize not just results, but courage, the kind that thrives in silence." Then he looked directly at me. "Would Ms. Nora Vail please join us?" My heart thundered. I stood, legs trembling, and walked to the stage. The spotlight hit my face. He smiled. "This is the woman who rebuilt one of our most challenged branches in 30 days. A reminder that integrity is louder than inheritance." The applause rose like a wave. Somewhere in the crowd, I caught a glimpse of my parents. They'd come uninvited, standing near the back. My father's face was unreadable. My mother's eyes glistened. For once, I didn't look away. When the noise faded, Elias leaned closer and said softly, "There's an offer waiting in your inbox. I think you've earned it." That night, when I opened the email, the subject line read, "Program Director, Guest Experience Probation 6 months." And for the first time in years, I cried, but not from pain, from relief. The morning after the town hall, my inbox exploded. Congratulations from colleagues, department heads, even people I'd never met. My name had been added to the internal newsletter alongside the words "Leadership through Integrity." But the message that stood out wasn't from corporate. It was from my cousin, the same one who had filmed my birthday humiliation. "Hey, Nora, just wanted to say, sorry." I deleted the video. Wish I hadn't posted it. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying, "Thank you." That was all I had to say. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was cleansing. A few hours later, my father called. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. long rambling attempts at rewriting history. You misunderstood us. We were trying to motivate you. By evening, he showed up in the hotel lobby, still in his winter coat, eyes blazing with something between pride and panic. Nora, he said, you embarrassed us out there. You could have warned me. I looked at him calm. Warn you about what? That I did my job well. He ran a hand through his hair. You're twisting this. You think success changes what you owe your family. I don't owe anyone who laughs at me, I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I worked for this. Alone. He stared at me, searching for the daughter he thought he controlled. But she wasn't there anymore. Finally, he sighed, the sound hollow. Your mother's worried sick. I'm not, I said quietly. He left without another word. The revolving door of the lobby swallowed him whole. Later that night, Elias called. You handled yourself well, he said simply. Not everyone would have stayed that composed. It wasn't hard, I replied. I've had years of practice staying quiet. He paused. Then maybe it's time you stopped being quiet. When the call ended, I sat in the dark office, city lights flickering through the glass. For the first time, silence didn't mean submission. It meant power. My first day as program director began in quiet. Not the nervous kind, just calm, purposeful silence. The title still felt unreal when I saw it printed under my nameplate, but the responsibility didn't scare me anymore. Elias's message had been short. Leadership is not noise, it's precision. I repeated that sentence in my head as I walked through the open-plan floor of my new department. People greeted me cautiously at first. A few whispered, others stared. Word of my promotion had spread faster than I expected. I wasn't the youngest director in the company, but I was the one nobody saw coming. By noon, I was leading a strategy meeting. I didn't try to sound impressive. I just listened, noted, guided. It wasn't about showing power, it was about wielding it gracefully. After the meeting, I found an envelope on my desk with no name. Inside, a handwritten note. We're proud of you. Dinner soon. Love, Mom. No father's name, just hers. I placed the note in the drawer without replying. Not out of anger, just boundaries. That night, I stood by my office window watching the last of the snow melt into the streets below. I realized something important. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnection. Sometimes it just means freedom from the expectation to keep proving your worth. The probation period stretched into weeks of learning, leading, and growing. I mentored younger managers, reviewed failing divisions, and redesigned customer feedback systems. Every success was built on the same lesson my father had mocked into me to endure quietly, then answer loudly with results. One afternoon, Elias stopped by my office. Your probation's nearly over, he said, hands in his pockets. You've exceeded every target. What's next for you? I thought for a long moment before answering. Peace, I said finally. And a team that never forgets how it feels to be overlooked. He nodded once. Then you've already won. After he left, I looked at my reflection in the window. The girl who once trembled under her father's judgment was gone. In her place stood a woman who didn't need to be seen to know her worth. A few months later, I received a certified letter. The return address, Vale & Sons Legal Associates, my family's firm. For a second, I almost laughed at the irony. I hadn't been a Vale & Sons in spirit for a long time. Inside the letter was formal, sterile, and exactly what I expected. My father's will had been amended. My name reinstated. A note scrawled in his handwriting at the bottom read, You've proven yourself worthy of the family legacy. I stared at it for a long time, tracing the ink grooves that once defined my value. Then I folded it neatly and slid it back into the envelope. The next morning, I donated the entire trust inheritance to a scholarship fund for underprivileged hospitality students. Kids who, like me, were told they didn't belong. I named it the Quiet Hands Initiative. When the press asked why, I simply said because silence can build empires too. That night, I stood on the rooftop of the Aegis headquarters. The city lights shimmered like stars trapped beneath glass. For the first time, I didn't feel small under them. I didn't feel like I had to climb higher to prove something. My father's disownment papers had once been my humiliation. Now they were my liberation. The revenge I'd imagined for years, watching him realize he couldn't break me, had already happened. Quietly. Perfectly. Revenge, I realized, isn't about destruction. It's about balance. It's about watching those who underestimated you face a world that no longer bends to their control. As I looked down at the city, I whispered, You didn't give me your legacy, Father. You gave me the strength to build my own. My phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from Elias. Probation officially over. Congratulations, Director Vale. I smiled, closed my eyes, and let the night wind carry everything else away, the shame, the anger, the need to prove. The world didn't owe me acknowledgement anymore, because I had already inherited the only thing that mattered, myself.